So let's start off right. Who's doing TDD regularly? All right. I give you some recipes how you can actually introduce it into your daily life. So let's see if that works. So TDD, your next Docker container. Containers have a heart too. They want to run, don't they? So I'm Wolfram Kriesing. I'm from HolidayCheck. And we actually have an office here in Poznan. And thanks for Lukas for pushing me actually to turning in this talk. I actually like to say I just share and care, but basically I'm a software developer. And I'm from Munich. And actually, why does that make a difference? Because I think there's a beer that is called Hacker, which I think makes quite a difference. But the real cool thing is that beer is actually from 1417. So there is a hacker culture for a long time. So I think Munich is a cool place to work. But it's not going to be all about beer. Actually, we're going to go to a beach. And we just took over a page that actually is called Beach Inspector. And that, with thanks to Lukas' help, I actually did a lot of mistakes there. But I learned from them, and actually some of them resulted in me writing a couple of tests for the Docker container, because I broke it at least twice. And one of the stories I would like to share with you, it's we just configured this PHP application to have some memory limit in there. You see, it says 512 megabytes. And at some point, we needed to upload a couple of bigger pictures. So the ini file in this case looked like that. And then I said, oh, actually, we need to increase the upload max size. So we just increased the upload max file size, which changed the ini file, which then looked like this. Yeah, right, you spotted it. I didn't when I did, but just a second. And then the second one I actually needed to introduce, which was post max size. And then my Docker file, my ini file actually should look like this. That's what I expected. But as you already said, that was just my hope. And of course I was wrong, because reality proved me that actually my ini file looked like this, because you spotted it already, I guess. You see the difference. It's just one arrow. And I broke it. And it went to production. And actually, the first time I changed something, it just overrode the memory limit. I was like, no way, I cannot do that ever again. So I think hope is just maybe, and it actually took away the time I could be on the beach. So I had to actually work, but I do rather work like this. So actually what I don't want to ship, you know. But how do I do that? So the memory limit, how would you test it? Maybe just go to the PHP info page and look at it up. Okay, that's one way. But then upload max file size. Do I build integration tests that always have 15.9 megabyte files and 16.1 and look that it always works and upload and really makes the CI slow? I don't know. That's one way. The same about most post max file size. So actually I sat there and I was like, oh, I don't want to ship, stupid stuff. So what do I actually want to do? What I want to do is I don't want to break the container, not even accidentally. I want to actually automate this, that I don't make those mistakes. And the third one is I actually want to convey the message when any other developer comes back at some point and looks at the container or the setup and doesn't know all the history, that you can look it up and you say, okay, that's why it's done that way. That's what it has to do. And currently, well, the state of the art right now is there was hope. It was basically, I hoped that it didn't break, or just test it manually. The second one, there was no automation. And the third one is basically to read the source. And we all know once a Docker file gets really big and becomes complex, it becomes fun reading it, or not. So let's fix that. And actually, that's nothing I invented. I'm just copying from other people and just sharing. As I said, sharing, caring. It actually was in a tech radar already 2017. So, and the software I'm going to show you, the tools are even older. So this is nothing that is completely new and rocket science. It's just, making our jobs better, more secure. And actually, there's two tools that were mentioned here. I would like to take apart one and then do some live coding. The first one is server spec, which basically is kind of, if you're familiar with RSpec and Ruby style, that's probably the way to go. And then there's another one which we're going to use now. It's called Goss. And actually, Goss is, it says itself, it was created in 2015, about a year after a server spec, and it's a YAML-based server spec alternative tool. Basically, the test files look like this. This is a YAML file. You don't have to understand them now. We'll build one in a second. But let's just go back to our problem, the memory limit. How would you test that? Now that we actually know where we're going. Yeah, probably you have an idea. Right, we would just have a simple command, run it on the PHP console, or the console basically get PHP to tell us, yes, I am configured with 512 megabytes. And the same for the upload max file size and the post max size. And the cool thing now in Goss, what you actually then can say, that's my expectation. I expect this command to exit with a status 0, and I actually expect it to output 512M, which is exactly the file size I want to have configured in my Docker container. And the same down here, and the same down there. And actually, the file itself looks like this. So you know all those three sections already. And once I run it, and I actually don't create my Docker container with that, I'm really just testing it, which we will see in a second. And there you see, that's the output. It's all green. That's what we want to have. For the post max size, it says, okay, the exit status is 0. The standard output says it printed 16M, and it does the same for the rest. So let's go into dgoss, or Goss, which is actually the tool. But let's take apart the words first. So Goss is basically for validating a server's configuration. It eases the process of writing, which we will see in a second. And you can actually generate tests from it, which is very useful, especially when you don't know how to write the YAML file in the right style. And they can actually be executed and weighted up on, and also use the health points, which I think is quite cool. And dgoss is actually what we need, which is a convenience wrapper around Goss. Actually, it's shipped with Goss, and it just brings the simplicity of Goss to Docker containers. So, and as I said, it ships with Goss. One more precondition we need, test-driven development. We rephrased it a little bit because we're in a HolidayCheck and it's a tourist company, so tourist-driven development. What's important in the red phase? We always go red, green, refactor, red, green, refactor. I could go on for this forever. But anyways, so we write a test, we want to see it fail, because we've never seen a failing test, then I don't even know if it's testing the right thing. And we actually want to keep it as simple as possible. And let's just look at the other, get to green fast, and actually want to take baby steps. If you ever like to try this, we actually practice this every morning. We have 45 minutes kata, where we do exactly this. Until now, I think we just did once TDDing Docker containers in the kata, but it's quite fun. I can just encourage you to try it out and actually make this a daily practice. And in a second, you will see how you can actually do that with Docker containers. So let's code. Oh, yeah. No? Now you can hear me? Ah, very good. So that's going to be a little bit acrobatic. Did you count how many background pictures I have? Huh? Not many? 78. Yeah, 79. Exactly. So let's start. I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit juggling. Let's start by looking first at the thing we have here. Currently, we're just going to have, you can see it? Yeah? So that's just our shell script that runs the entire thing that we're going to use all the time. And then we have, can you see it? You should say no, thank you. That was a red test. So now we make it green. And do you see it now? Test passed. Okay. You know, just coming from red to green. And that's a Docker file that actually installs Goss. As you can see, it derives from the Goss from Golang, and it just does a tiny little thing. How does that work? Can you see this? Let's see. We're going to run the shell script that just builds the container. Now we're in the container, and the container has Goss installed in there. So let's just see Goss is there. Yes, actually Goss says, here I am, version, all my help. Now we can do one thing, as I said before, we can actually create our first test file using Goss. And there's a simple command where you can say Goss add, and in this case I'm going to say add the command Goss. And what this is doing, it's actually, you see, it looks like the Goss output we saw before, but in the YAML style. And what it actually did, it put this stuff in here in the Goss YAML file. And the Goss YAML file is basically our test file. You can see it's quite big. There's a lot of noise in there. We will fix that. But now we actually want to see that this runs. So we say Goss V, which is for validate. And you see there's 2 tests running, and it's green. We didn't see it fail. Right, we didn't. But what first I would like to do is maybe go into our run shell script and say, let's make it easier. I just want to have this in here so I can leave the container, and now I can run this from here. I would like to have the Goss file outside of the container. So actually let's throw this in as a volume. Volume. And we put it in the Go directory, simply because that's where the Goss file is now being expected. And if I now run it, and I say Goss add command Goss, I hope to get this output, and I hope to have my Goss YAML file actually that stuff in here. And you can see there's lots of noise as before. So let's remove the stuff we're not interested in, because this is what was generated now. What Goss did in the background, it just said, okay, take the Goss command, execute it, record what you get on the standard output, throw it in the YAML file, and make it so I can actually execute it again as a test. So that's my tiny test now. Now let's go back and say Goss V, and it runs the test and actually does it, but we want to see it fail, right? So let's say 0.37 Goss, and it says, yeah, you have 0.37 in there, which is not what I expected. So let's make it green again, and now we can run the Goss V again. So another thing we could actually now say, we could say, hey Goss, we added a command before, which was just executed. Now we can say, hey, check for the file, Goss YAML, which is actually the file that we had just created and edited a little bit. And let's add this. It says like, here it is. There's your Goss YAML file. It exists, it has a certain mode, it has a size. Now let's run it. What do you expect to see? Green or red? Why red? Oh, thank you very much. The size has changed because it was reading the YAML file, it looked at it, 95 bytes or something, but now it actually got added some more, which you see up here. So now what we could actually say, we could say, that's the size greater than 0. And now let's run it again. Yeah, it works. Nice. So now we, in order to document this a little bit, we can use something called the title here. We can say, ensure the Goss, well, ensure our tests exist. Because it's the Goss YAML file is just a tool. It's actually the tests that we care about, right? So let's run this again, Goss v, and you can even see it still passes, and we will see in a second where you see the title. So next step, I have to look, because I don't want to do the wrong order. Okay, so now you can imagine what we actually want to do. We have a Docker container now that runs Goss inside. But what we actually want to have is we want to have a Docker container that tests other Docker containers. So let's check first if we have dgoss there, and second if we have Docker installed in a container. Talking about Docker and Docker? Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because we don't want to do that really. So let's say we were going to run the command dgoss. So it says, yeah, dgoss is there. Let's validate it. Yes. So actually, that's the output of dgoss. And we're just recording it, putting it into our YAML file. And the second thing is we want to add that Docker is there. And so Docker is currently not installed. We see here dgoss has been added, and Docker has been added. So actually, we want to have Docker in there. We don't want it to fail. So, and we're just talking about the Docker executable that we want to have in a Docker container. Actually, I have to copy paste this because it's big. So that piece of Docker container that we want to install in our Docker file, that's going to be this piece. And now if we say, we change the test, we want to have Docker in there. We didn't see it fail before, right? Oh, let's go back. We want to see it fail first. So if we say this, it says, yes, Docker is not there. And now let's undo this. Now we're going to have Docker installed. And let's see. All right, so there's dgoss. There's Goss and there's Docker inside this container. And the next thing we actually want to do, since when I was reading up on this and trying it out, then I thought, okay, now I have to have a Docker container. I have to have Docker inside, which loads the other container. Doesn't sound cool. There's ways to do it, but actually the author of Docker and Docker has written an article where he says, you know, here's your solution, do it differently. That's the thing we're going to do. What we're going to do is basically we're not going to make the Docker containers children of each other, but siblings. So we're just going to use the same socket, which means what we want to know is that the file var run docker.sock exists, and of course it currently doesn't exist. This test will pass because it was just generated. So now let's say, let's take this one. We want var run docker.sock. We're just going to map this from my machine into the Docker container. And we're going to say, yes, please say it's true. Well, let's see false first, fail, because we should have it in there now. V. Oh, yes, it says true, false. It expected it to be there, but it's not there. So let's change our test to true. And now let's run again. So now we actually know how to do that. And which container do we, so we have the Docker container that runs Goss, and that can actually spawn any other container, the image under test. So now let's test what? Well, we're going to test the image ourselves, like ourselves. So this Docker container is now going to test that this image actually has the right stuff, because we already wrote the tests, right? So the way we do that is we say dgoss, we have to say run, and then we have to say which image we actually want to check. We want to check dgoss. It actually takes the same parameter as Docker the Docker executable. It says Docker run and then the image name. That's what we're doing. It's called TDD Docker image. And now it says, oh no. And actually, because that's, and if you have a better version of this, please tell me, but need to have it running for a while. I actually don't know. And now it says Goss not found. So that's actually another one that cost me a couple of hours, but it's just a macOS issue, which is the Docker, the Goss for some reason uses a certain way to mount the image. And actually the strategy we need to use is CP instead of mount. And now if we run it, we should actually see that it's going to run and it's failing. And it's failing for good reasons, because it says go YAML is not there. So what we actually have to do, since we have Goss and dgoss running, it expects the YAML file to be in there. Because what we're doing is we have this one container that just runs Goss, hooks up to the other container, and pastes the test file in there, executes Goss in there. And that dgoss actually does it that way, that it copies the Goss file into the YAML file into the container under Goss. And now let's see. This works not. What is it saying? It says expected false. That's exactly when you do live coding. Goss YAML, blah, blah, blah. What's wrong? Yeah, it's running. What's failing? You know what? Just to hack it, we remove it. Because we want to get done in time, don't we? Because we will have another failing test. It actually says Docker sock. I tried it 7 times, but now I did something wrong. So we don't want to have the socket actually in the other container, and we don't have it. So we say only now the command in there. Now we run this, and now we should have green tests. We're testing basically our own image. Actually, now I want to know why the Goss YAML file didn't work. But I only have 6 minutes. So do you want to see it? Shall we try it? Let me try it. Yeah, let's try it. Let's undo. Undo. And now let's see. It says exists true. Let's run it again. I don't know what that was. What? I didn't save? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that was too simple. Thank you very much. That's why I like pair programming, or mob programming, actually. So we have this. You see how you can actually test any other Docker container with just a couple of lines. You can now go and edit stuff here. You see the title, actually, you should see it popping up now. We see here the title, ensure our tests exist. We can document all the lines. We can actually put the real stuff in there that's not technical, but that makes us understand why this Docker container does a certain thing. And this way, I think it's quite simple to just get running and up and test your Docker containers. And now let's go back to slides. So, yeah, we did code. Did I show code? Yeah. Did everyone understand it? Yeah. Okay, did everyone understand it? No? Okay. Well, you can go to the repo later. So what's the new state of the art? The new state of the art is not to break the container accidentally. That equals to the quality of the tests that we're writing. If we're writing good tests, we know how much we do or don't break our container test coverage. Automate this? Yeah, done. You just need a shell file now or some file that executes it. And can we document the container, what the container does? Yeah, we can. Because we have the YAML file, we actually have a nice description there, we're going to give it a title, and that's just easy to make sure that the container does what it's supposed to be. You can find all this, if that was too fast or too much, on GitHub. And actually, the tweet should have gone out 5 minutes ago. How can you actually start tomorrow? So what you can do is you can just create it's a good exercise, I think, to just create the test-driven way this Docker image, or you can just copy it for your next project and write a test for every change that you do from tomorrow on. You don't have to write all the tests for all the things that the Docker container already does, because then you will probably not, get done soon. But maybe just write a test for the thing that you actually change tomorrow. And yeah, this way you're getting safer over time. And actually, if you need a reminder, just go and grab this one here for test-driven development. And thank you, that's me. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm actually negatively surprised. We only have one question, but I think it's a very important one.
It's too simple.
Yeah, it's probably too simple. Yeah. No one is testing containers probably. All right. So how do you run Goss in a production pipeline?
Well, you just put it in your CI, and the Docker file doesn't actually change, since the CI just executes the test with the Docker file you're going to deploy. I don't.
All right, we have another one.
All right.
That was encouraging. Another one. Okay. What CI tools have you tested it with? Jenkins, GitLab, some other stuff?
What CI tools? Yeah, well, actually, I think it doesn't matter, because it's a Docker container that runs a Docker container. Oh, you mean because of the socket connection?
That's not my question.
I don't know.
That's from Przemek. Maybe Przemek would kind of...
Because GitLab runs it within Docker, so you
yeah.
running Docker within Docker, so is it...
Yeah, I mean, Travis does that too, and I think I just didn't want to do it, at least locally, so I just did it that way. If you don't want to do the socket thingy, don't do it. I think there's lots of Docker and Docker experience there. I just try to prevent it.
And that there's just one last, also from Przemek, but I don't know if it was the same Przemek. But, have you thought about putting those most common PHP settings to env vars to make it part of app configuration?
Yeah, it can be done many ways, I guess. In this case, it's done that way. I don't know. But to be honest, I'm actually not. I know that all of you here can write better Docker files than me, since I'm not really the expert in this. But yeah, thanks for the input, and then we'll do it better.
All right, thank you very much. That was indeed very interesting.